Hi everyone, it's Becky here. Welcome to another new video on my YouTube channel. In today's video, I would like to share with you my afternoon in late October around La Chienne Canal in Montreal. So here I'm going to walk across the bridge to the other side. I think the area on the other side is called Charlevoix. Everything looks so brilliant and gorgeous on a bright sunny day. And it's not too cold yet in Montreal. We're having a really warm autumn. Here I'm outside Clark Cafe around Charlevoix Metro Station. It's my first time here, and on Google Map it has a really high rating. And so I just drew my cup of coffee and the little pastry item. Now I'm drawing the head of this customer and her coat, her elbow bending around, touching the counter area, and her legs. She was talking to the barista and waiting for her order. After that, I'm going to draw her shoes, adding a little texture for her hair and some little details, and that's it. Now I'm connecting the edge of the counter with her elbow area. It's just really easy for me to start drawing a person, and so I can compare the position of other things around her. So the height of the shelf is about the same height as her head, and then these other small items like napkin boxes, stacks of paper cups and stuff are just easier to fit in relationship to the size and height of her body. And now I'm just kind of building up. There is like a box of snacks on top of this pastry display shelf, and there's another pastry shelf above. And now I am drawing the barista wearing a hat. He had a mustache, his face, and just use a dot to draw his eyes. Just keep it simple. And then connecting the houseplant on his left, his arm reaching out, making a cup of coffee for her. And right above his head, there's the menu of the cafe using squiggles to show the letters, more signs around it, and the lamp hanging onto the ceiling. There's another menu board on his right and stacks of paper cups on the espresso machine. I love drawing these stacking paper cups. And the espresso machine underneath the cups. Actually, this is actually a shelf with different utensils and the coffee storage. And adding another extra line underneath the counter edge. Adding some more little lights on the ceiling and larger lamps hanging down from the ceiling and their radiance. Just finishing the corner of the counter around the lady's left side, adding little loose lines to show the wooden planks and the floorboard. There's another lamp on the wall and another one. Yeah, so the lamps in cafes and restaurants can be really interesting, and they could have a variety of different designs of lamp hoods. So that's it for the drawing part. Now I'm ready to take out my water brushes and the towel to clean the brushes, to paint watercolors on top of the ink drawing. Here's my Etchr watercolor palette. Okay, so now guess what color I'm gonna begin with. Most of the time when I'm doing a cafe sketch, I begin with yellow, a really mellow yellow for the pastry item, and yeah, also for the surface of the paper cup. And of course, I'm gonna wet the scenery area with clear water before adding the mellow yellow. I'm gonna grab a little bit of lemon yellow and cadmium yellow, very much diluted, to show how the interior is being illuminated by the lights, like on everything. This is how I easily establish a warm and inviting indoor atmosphere, is to begin with this warm light wash of yellow. Grabbing a little bit of orange to paint the second layer of this pastry item. It's like a croissant with chocolate chips and burnt sienna. For the third layer, wet into wet for the shades on the surface of the pastry. And using the orange to paint underneath the lamps, just to give these light bulbs even more warmth. So it's like a lemon yellow and cadmium yellow containing less water compared to the previous layer. And using the leftover brown to paint the edge of the counter, and also these little pastry items and little dots. So as you can see, I'm saving time by using this brown to paint the browns that I see, including the boards of the shelf. So it saves a lot of time from going back and forth. Just paint the same color at the same time. Using the leftover gray to paint the glassy areas of the display shelf. And the leftover green for the house plant. So that's like a verdant green mixed with a little bit of yellow ochre. A bit more intense. And the menu is green as well. So the theme color of this cafe is green. Apparently this lady was wearing a green coat. So it's like a really nice coincidence that her coat is a matching color with the theme color of the cafe. Really nice vintage green. Yeah, I'm just gonna paint her pants with leftover gray, raw umber or like a dark brown for her hair. And grabbing some leftover gray to paint the lamp hoods, leaving a tiny little bit of highlight in the middle. And his apron is also like a black color. Using the leftover gray to paint underneath the edge of the counter because there's a cast shadow to give 3 dimension, and also the cast shadow from the lady's body. And painting the bottom board of the counter. So I mix my own gray with ultramarine blue and a little bit of royal purple. There are a lot of grays for these metallic machines. And people these days, a lot of them are wearing like black jackets and pants. Adding some little accentuations here and there. And the leftover brown for those clusters of coffee beans. For their skin color, I used the leftover orange, diluted. Yeah, so there are actually a lot of grays in this scenery, but the greens and yellows stand out really well. Adding a little shadow underneath her elbow to give her body more 3 dimension. And some more leftover grays for the lamps. I think that's very much it. The color scheme of this interior is very simple. Now I just grabbed some verdant green mixed with a little bit of burnt sienna, so it's a pretty vintage green, to paint the lid of the coffee cup. Verdant green also mixed in with a little bit of ultramarine blue, so it's like a deep turquoise color. For the second layer, it's very important to show the shine of plastic this way. I'm leaving a little bit of color from the first layer unpainted to show the shine of plastic. And now using the leftover gray to paint the shadow of the pastry item. And also for the left side of the paper cup, it's a cylinder, and it needs to have like a transition of this gray on the surface. And adding some more intense dark turquoise for the coffee cup lid, the shadow underneath. And grabbing some yellow and orange, like yellow ochre mixed with orange to paint the floorboards in a very simple way. Just one layer wash. Leftover brown to give it a little bit more texture, like raw umber and burnt sienna, using thin brush strokes. A little bit of leftover gray to paint underneath the ceiling, because walls, they're never perfectly white or of its original color. There's a bit of shadow here. Underneath the coffee cup, there's its own shadow. That's it. Here's the look of my finished little sketch. Okay, so now I just moved to the table close to the window, and I really love the buildings outside on the other side of the street, the light and shadows. And the cafe is gonna close in about 25 minutes. But I think having a time limit is actually good to push myself to sketch faster and just capture the essence. But at the same time, I'm not trying to rush. Sketching quickly doesn't mean to rush the process. So I just began with the upper corner of the building and the upstairs balcony railings, which is a prism. Quick vertical lines to show the railings. Just quickly adding these details and the bottom. Drawing this quick vertical line, and the balcony for the floor below it is aligning on the same vertical line. And it's also a prism. Just keep making more lines. This is the staircase, nice and curvy. This is one side of the railing and the other side, and this is sort of overlapping with the one in front of it. Quick vertical lines. So I really like the staircases on Montreal buildings and the steps in between the railings. This is actually so much fun to draw. And that's the staircase. And I'm connecting a car parked in front of the building just to give proportion to the size of the building. Just the head part of the car. And then drawing a person passing by. So drawing people's carts and bikes really helps to show the proportion of buildings. As all of a sudden, this building looks so much more larger than it feels like. And the fence on the bottom of the building and the tree on the right side of the staircase. So after that, I am connecting the shapes that I see above the tree, these horizontal lines. Now I'm beginning to add these window frames and fill the inside with smaller shapes, glass panels, and color them in with black ink to show the density of the interior. Yeah, so a bunch of big and small rectangles. So as I always mentioned in my previous videos, other than using just lines, we could color in some of the shapes with solid black. For example, windows or gaps in between the objects that creates like a dark shadow area. So we could just color those areas in with black ink, just so we're giving more definition to the things we're drawing. And also these denser areas are attracting the viewer's attention and gives more balance to our drawings. Now moving on to the ground level of this building. Behind the staircases, I see some other lines that define window frames, more solid black shapes. So the tree could stand out better in front of the solid black shapes. Adding another car, just partially, the partial view of the car is okay. When we're drawing things, we don't have to draw their full shape all the time. And there's a little tree right behind the car by the sidewalk. the line that separates the sidewalk and the street. Now I'm going to draw the top line of this building because the perspective is looking a little shorter from this angle. In fact, those two buildings are about the same height. Just because of perspective, the one on the left is looking a little shorter. And adding the back of another car in the foreground. Some little details for this corner building. Just adding a caption for my art journal page. Cafe Clark. I think this cafe is really famous for their sandwiches. Their pastry items are, I think it tastes okay, but on Google Maps it shows they're pretty famous for the sandwiches. Now I'm ready to add watercolors. So the drawing took me about 10 minutes or so to do. Now it's time for watercolors. Just gonna look for my brushes in my little makeup bag. I think before that I just want to add some final drawing details of some branches and twigs. Because the golden leaves hanging on these branches are really charming and I don't want to miss them. Just like adding some quick hatching lines to give more density for these branches. And very quick loose lines for the little twigs. Okay, so now I'm ready for watercolors. So just wetting the sky area with clear water. So the color of blue and turquoise could spread out very easily and not getting into any dry brushing. So I just mix cerulean blue with a little bit lime green to get this turquoise color. On top there's more cerulean blue. The evening sky, I could always see turquoise tones, especially on a sunny day. Wetting the street area with clear water and putting on some leftover yellow to show the reflection of the sunshine, especially around later in the afternoon. There's a lot of warm yellows from the sun being reflected onto the street and on everything else. So this is a blend of orange and burnt sienna or brown. Orange brown for this building. So the town of buildings on different weathers, different times of the day, the color could look very different. So here I have a lot of warm yellows, yellow browns, and a bit of raw umber on the right side. Probably the shadow from something else in front of it. So if you observe very deeply, so things in the world, the surfaces of things, they are very rarely just one singular tone. Okay, yeah, especially for this terracotta color buildings. On a sunny day, I see more tones of yellows and yellow oranges. And quickly paint the trees. There's 2 layers of different tones of viridian green. And these window frames are actually green as well. The vintage green, very nostalgic. And some more leftover browns. Using tiny little brush strokes of burnt sienna to show the texture of the bricks. And a little bit shadow underneath the staircase. And also mixing my own gray with ultramarine blue and royal purple to add the shadows around the sidewalk and around here, the side of the street. If you want to show the warmth of a bright sunny day, you have to paint the shadows very bravely and the cast shadow from the main building, including the balconies. Also, this staircase, kind of like a ladder being reflected onto the exterior of that building. Some more purple blues around the edge here. Yeah, so the shadow is very sensational. And keep going with the shadow colors, including the dense browns underneath the balconies, in between the steps of the staircase. A little bit more polish for that shadow there. And just let the wet into wet blend into each other. I love how the two tones of bluish grays are blending together for the shadow of the building on the left. And now I'm just punching on these brushstrokes of yellow-orange. And just pure orange for the second layer for these golden foliages. Using choppy brushstrokes, this is the easy way to paint leaves. Yeah, and just keep punching this color on. As you can see, every brushstroke is slightly different, containing more or less water, just so these leaves are not flat. They're laying at different levels on the branches, and using raw umber to paint the branches and twigs very quickly and loosely with swiping brushstrokes. Adding this mellow yellow-orange, the color of the sunset, reflecting onto these cars, and then the grays on parts of the car to show shadows. That's it. Here's the look of my finished art journal page. It was really fun to combine the inside and outside view of the cafe. So thank you so much for watching my video, everyone. If you like it, please click like and leave me a comment below. Subscribe to my channel for weekly updates. So in December, I'm going to update on my channel very often. I filmed a lot of video in October and November in Montreal. And before walking to the metro station here at the canal, the foliages are so pretty, so I spent about 15 minutes to do a quick sketch before this golden color faded away. Here's the look of my finished art journal page spread. Yeah, this one on the right, it took me only 15 minutes, and my phone battery was dying, so I was not able to film it. Alright, see you next time, everyone.